Support for The Office Blokes is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping anywhere on the globe.
Bargain, brilliant.
Just use the code OfficeBlokes at the till at manscaped.com. It's as simple as that. Register at the checkout. Imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed, optimised trimmer that makes shaving your favourite time in the bathroom. Wireless charging, skin-safe technology, waterproof, all deodorant. It's just a win-win.
I've been using this package for a while.
Yeah,
I can guarantee it's the best I've used.
Yeah, I've been using my package about 35 years now, to be fair.
Yeah, but is it nice and smooth and well groomed? It will be now.
Yep. Get 20% off and free shipping with code OfficeBlokes at the checkout. Your balls will thank you. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Just use the code OfficeBlokes. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Just do it. You need a Lawnmower 4.0. Do it. Cheers, guys. We are the Office Blokes. 2 of the YouTube channels, Patreon page, social media merch, all that good stuff. Click the link below and it will take you where you need to go. We appreciate the support massively. £1.50. Accent Expert gives a tour of US accents, part 1. I think we dabbled with a video like this, but it was short and it was one person trying to do all the accents.
Yeah. I'm thinking this guy's probably going to be the same. But would you be able to tell the different accents from like a Boston accent to a...
I think I could tell quite a few of them, to be fair, because obviously you listen to a lot of American music, comedians, podcasts, stuff like that. I think I've got a good idea, but there's going to be loads. Like, to me, the whole Midwest is an accent.
One accent, yeah.
Whereas it's probably going to encompass 15 different accents or something. But we'll get into it, see how many I can get. Let's do it. Accent Expert gives a tour of US accents, part 1. Let's do this.
New York City, Trenton, North Carolina, Ocracoke Island, Mississippi, and northern Florida. That's where you get the sort of Blanche Dubois, Scarlett O'Hara kind of classical Southern accent. Hi, my name is Eric Singer. I'm a dialect coach. Today we're going to take a little tour of some of the different accents of English-speaking North America. Now, a couple of quick disclaimers. These are by no means all the accents in North America or even all the English-speaking ones. And not everyone from the same place sounds the same. Accents vary by socioeconomic background, generation, ethnicity, and race, and all kinds of individual factors. Because in a very real way, accent is identity. Different people from the same place have more or less localizable accents, and that usually has to do with identity too. Now, on some of our stops, we're going to be looking at some of the most distinctive and interesting local features, but it doesn't mean that everyone from there has that accent or has it to the same degree. I'm also going to have some linguists and language experts from around the continent join me today to lend their expertise in some of these areas.
Hi, I'm Megan Figueroa.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
Peace. I'm Sun Michaud.
Hi, I'm Kalina.
Hi, I'm Amani Doran.
One of the things you'll notice along the way is that accents often don't follow political boundaries, especially ones like state lines. They'll follow major geographical boundaries, things like mountains, for sure. But what regional accent differences mostly reflect is settlement patterns and contact. Historically isolated communities, like Ocracoke Island in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, or the Sea Islands in the Lowcountry in Georgia, can have really distinctive speechways. They've had the time and isolation necessary to diverge and develop them. That's the other thing that makes for accent variety: time. There's a lot more accent diversity in the British Isles, for example, where there are local populations that have been speaking English in their particular way for hundreds and hundreds of years. And there's more accent diversity on the east coast of the US.
I like how it actually had things like Geordie and Scouse and stuff written there. He knows what he's talking about with his accents, doesn't he?
Well, that's his job.
Well, yeah. I mean, but it's such a vast topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just glad he touched on the UK, because we've got the Manchester accent, and then 30 miles away, the Liverpool accent is not completely different.
It's very different. You can stand out. You know someone who's from Manchester and who's from Liverpool.
Without a doubt, yeah. But I'd say that people that aren't from the UK would
Probably
notice
pick up on it.
similar inflections between the Liverpool and the Mancunian accent.
It's like Mike's got a Timpley accent.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if he knows about the Timpley accent. I think he's got Mike.
He kidnapped him.
Than there is west of the Mississippi. It's been settled by English speakers longer. The first places English was spoken in North America were Roanoke, Jamestown, and of course, Plymouth, Massachusetts, where the Pilgrims landed in 1620. So let's start there. The Pilgrims spoke with what we call rhotic accents, meaning they said all their R's. In fact, so did almost all English speakers in 1620, including the ones in England. That's right, a Southern English accent might have used to sound something like this. It was only in the late 18th century that fashionable young people in and around London started dropping their R's, and from there the trend spread to America. Now, north of Plymouth Rock, we have Harvard Yard, one of the places you might hear a Boston accent today. The stereotypical Boston accents, of course, are non-rhotic, meaning no R sounds in park your car in Harvard Yard. Let's all get in the car and head south down the coast now into Rhode Island. Traditional Rhode Island accents here are still non-rhotic, but there's a key vowel difference. The placement for that vowel sound in park your car in Harvard Yard. We call this the start vowel. In Boston, it's usually pretty fronted. Park your car in Harvard Yard. In Rhode Island, it's back. Park your car in Harvard Yard. Rhode Island accents were shaped by a lot of Irish and Italian immigration, just like New York City. So many accents. They don't vary by borough, by the way. That's a myth. I know you guys are going to tell me to forget about it, but I'm sorry. Sociolinguists have studied this really carefully, and there just really isn't any such thing as a specifically Brooklyn or specifically Bronx accent. There certainly are a lot of different New York City accents, but they vary by socioeconomic background and by ethnicity and other aspects of group belonging and identity, more than by neighborhood or by borough. They're historically non-rhotic, though that's changing some in the youngest generations for sure. Here's something fun most of them have in common. The tongue tip hits the teeth, or close to them, on TD and N sounds instead of, a little further back. So you can hear that in like this kind of New York City accent, tongue tip on the teeth, Times Square, New York City, and this kind of New York accent, 22nd Street, Times Square, Dumbo, taxis, traffic, and so on. Okay.
I like this guy.
Just thinking that absolutely amazing.
It's mesmerising.
He's just slipping seamlessly, but also it's the science of it. Like that New York accent where he said the little bit he did with the tongue touching the teeth made such a difference. But I'd have no way of explaining.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the mouth's doing. It's cool though.
He's a dialect coach, isn't he? So
I know, but
he's mesmerising to me. He's got me in.
I just thought, when you see like actors like Stephen Graham over here, who's amazing at doing accents, I wonder to what level he understands all this, or he's just naturally talented at doing accents.
I think he probably has a dialect coach.
I think in a major movie you'll have a dialect coach when you're putting on a voice, without a doubt, because he's done Al Capone, didn't he? Yep. And there's no way he's gone from Scouse to Al Capone.
He's broad Scouse as well.
Yeah, this
guy's great.
Really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you may have noticed that all of these accents I've talked about so far sound pretty white. I'm going to take a pause here, and linguist Nicole Holliday is going to go a little deeper on African-American English varieties. My colleague Amani Dorn is going to demonstrate some of those accents.
Hi, I'm Nicole Holliday, and I'm a linguist. As we know, New York has all kinds of people in it. African American English has a lot of shared features across regions because of its history. So Black people in Africa were kidnapped and brought to what is now the United States. At the time, they didn't all speak the same languages. They spoke multiple different African languages. And those languages came into contact not only with each other, but those languages were also coming into contact with the English spoken by the colonizers. This created a situation where there was a really unusual learning exposure to English, right? So there are all of these languages in contact with each other. And for economic and survival reasons, the enslaved people had to, in some ways, acquire English. But the English that they were acquiring was not like what you learn in the classroom, right? It was under this really unusual situation of acquisition. So some of the features that we see in modern African American English are a result of this contact between the African languages as well as the English spoken by colonizers, and those features have persisted over generations. After slavery was legally ended, the majority of African Americans remained in the South but experienced really extreme segregation. This led to different varieties of English being spoken in Black and white communities within the South, and even as they moved north during the Great Migration.
Nicole, how did the Great Migration influence accents?
The English that we see today spoken by African Americans has some features that have persisted throughout generations. TH stopping, so that might be using something like a D sound for where you see a written TH, so dat for that. You can hear that in this clip.
They said I could participate online. They said I could participate online.
L vocalization, so that's an L turning into a vowel in a word like pool or pull, might sound something like pool or pull.
He said that's cool, cool. That's cool.
We also see consonant cluster simplification. If you have a series of consonants at the end of a word, you might see them turn into just one consonant. So in a word like west, you might hear it pronounced as west.
It's been a minute, but she just left. She just left.
And anything specific to New York?
One feature common in New York City is what we call a raised vowel in words like thought and cloth. It sounds something like aw.
Coffee without froth on top isn't coffee at all. So let's get it together.
Okay, let's go back to Eric.
Thank you, Nicole.
Mesmerizing, this. It is really interesting. It's funny that when she did the sort of African American accents, all I'm getting is Southern.
What, when he's saying like left and...
Yeah. That I associate practically all of that with a Southern American accent, which I know a Southern American accent is such a broad topic because it's...
I'm thinking he's going to get into that in a minute.
Well, he did say that the slave trade, when it ended, most of the African American people stayed in the South where it was predominant, so it makes sense that the accent had sort of flourished there.
But it's interesting to know how he's describing it all, or how they're all describing it for the educational purposes for us, because I didn't pick up on a lot of the stuff he was saying there. I didn't know. I
definitely didn't know, but I've also got no way of vocalising these differences that he's talking about.
One word that used to always come up with me that I couldn't get my head around is if you ask someone, and you know the word ask,
right?
A lot of people in New York used to say axe.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. You better axe somebody.
Axe somebody. Yeah, I'm like,
I mean something else over here.
means something else everywhere.
Yeah. And even that's just the tip of the iceberg for linguistic diversity in this incredibly diverse city. Around 50% of New Yorkers speak languages other than English at home. And for half of those, that language is Spanish. Megan Figueroa is here to tell us a little bit about one of those varieties, a variety linguists call New York Latino English.
Funny to mention that, because with the floods the recent floods that's been in New York, New Jersey, another place as well. But it's they had the news when it was on it, and I think it was the BBC or Sky News or something.
Right.
And he went, "We're going to go live to this part of New Jersey now. We're going to talk with one of the residents." She was Spanish.
Oh, really?
She was speaking Spanish, and the guy's just looking like that, and she's just going like, "¿Qué pasó?" You know? Guy's just looking at the camera. He went back to the studio.
Yeah, he dropped a ball out there.
Yeah.
New York Latino English is heavily influenced by Puerto Rican Spanish and Dominican Spanish. One remarkable feature of this variety is a light L, the sound that you would find in a word like, love, leaf.
Right, so New York Latino English speakers have a particularly light L. You can hear that in this native speaker clip.
I guess growing up, I know what it's like to not have a lie. I know what it's like to not have a lie.
In contrast to the light L, when you produce the dark L, the back of your tongue bunches. So think about the words milk and pull. The lighter L was a feature of New York Latino English. But Latinx people are a very diverse group of people, and they speak a variety of varieties.
She just said Latinx. I heard a comedian talking about, it might have been Andrew Schultz last year, that they've tried to de-gender language, so it's no Latino, Latina anymore, it's Latinx, which is all encompassing. And it was like mad. It has, because in every language you've got the masculine, the feminine. It's nothing to do with gender, it's to do with linguistics.
Who gives a shit?
Precisely. Yeah. But I've not heard anyone use Latinx in a sort of...
I didn't even know.
We'll get to more of those later.
Thank you, Megan. And this single feature is a good contrast with other New York accents, by the way, because most other New York accents have pretty dark L's. Lots of lemon lollipops, la la, I like to lick 'em. So now, as we leave New York and head south into Jersey and towards Philadelphia, we cross a major dialect boundary, the on line. Now, north of this line, most people say on, rhymes with don. South of it, they say on, rhymes with dawn. Of course, this doesn't apply at all if you rhyme dawn and dawn, only if you have two distinct pronunciations. That's called the cot-caught merger, but we'll talk more about that later. There are a few major dialect areas in the US, and one of the biggest dividing lines is between northern dialects and midland dialects. The on line basically runs right along this boundary. So as we cross over it somewhere around Trenton, we've crossed from the north to the Midlands, dialect-wise. Now, another thing that starts to happen as we get down towards Philly is that the goat diphthong starts to move forwards in the mouth. So we get go, hoagies. You want to go get some hoagies? Goat gets maybe even a little further forward as we get down to Baltimore, especially, Danny Ocean. You want to go Danny Ocean on Wednesday? Let's make a quick stop in D.C., where Nicole has some really interesting stuff on the prosody of local African American speakers.
In my research, I study prosody, which has to do with the tone and intonation of the phrase itself. In a study, I found that African American speakers may be more likely to ask a yes-no question with a level tone or a falling tone. For white speakers, we expect a rising tone in questions like these. So something like, did you do the dishes? But African American speakers may be more likely to say something like, did you do the dishes? Another feature that we see in DC, similar to New York, is the raised thought cloth vowel, that ah. This is a new feature in DC, and we think it's part of a pattern of DC varieties becoming more like northern cities as opposed to the South. You can hear that in this clip.
Change is needed, but at what cost? At what cost?
Okay, let's go back to Eric.
Now we take a quick detour over to Pittsburgh. Yous are the only people in all of North America that smooths the mouth diphthong, except for maybe Chicago sometimes. Now, smoothing is when you take a diphthong, like ow, and smooth it out so it's just one sound, ah. Just like we have price smoothing in much of the South, so that I smooths out to just ah, price. Same thing here, except with the mouth vowel smoothing out to a long ah sound. Yins want to meet downtown, go shopping for catches? Heading back over to the Del Mar.
Absolutely lost me at this point. I don't know that accent whatsoever.
No, I've not. I won't be able to pick that up. But we're talking about when you talk about the rise and when it goes up at the end and it comes down at the end.
Yeah.
When we ask a question over here, we tend to go down. Like when he said, have you done the dishes? It's a downward.
Yeah.
But when we went to America, when we lived there, we changed the way we used to say things. It just come automatically. We didn't change it deliberately. But what you do, you'd end it on an up.
Yeah.
Because that's how it worked.
I think
when you end in an up, you sound Australian English.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people used to think I was Australian.
Yeah.
Even when I come back here,
people
used to say, hey, you got like an Australian twang.
I think ending it on the up implies positivity, whereas over here we end everything on the down. You done the dishes?
Negative, yeah. Have you done the dishes?
Up, to me, can be a little bit patronising. I think that's what I get when someone puts an upward inflection on it. It's like, have you done the dishes? It's like, don't be sarcastic with me. What you talking about?
I'm Dave. I haven't done anything like that. I've done the dishes. Seen your cup.
Peninsula. As we head down into Virginia, we get something different happening with that same mouth diphthong. Here it's going to sound like oat, mouth, house. So it's not smoothing out here, it's raising. The tongue starts a little higher up, instead of ah, so it's like oat, a boat, house.
Canadian.
This feature is called tidewater raising. Something similar happens with this vowel in Canada, and there we call it Canadian raising, but it's essentially the same thing happening. Time to get out of the house, keep heading south. Down in North Carolina, we really start to hear pretty significant goat fronting again. So the vowel sound in boat, most, hope, starts with the tongue further forwards in the mouth, O. Interestingly, goat fronting, which is now widespread in a lot of the American South, seems to have originated in North Carolina sometime in the last part of the 19th century. Remember that regional dialect boundaries don't necessarily follow political boundaries. They follow settlement patterns and contact patterns between populations. So the inland part of North Carolina, which is in the Appalachian Highlands, The original European settlers were Scotch-Irish folks and Germans moving southwest from Pennsylvania. Due to being relatively inaccessible and isolated for a long time, the accent is distinct from the lowlands and from the coastal areas. The isolated speech communities are fascinating because we can get some really interesting sound patterns. Up here you get some really dramatic face lowering, for example. So the diphthong in face starts real low, down around a, face, light, day. You'll also get some particular dialect features, so words and word order and grammar things that stretch way back to those original settlers from Scotland and Northern Ireland. Things like a hunting and a fishing, and extra sounds too, like the R sound in wash and the H sound in hit.
O'Shaughnessy's gone a hunting.
O'Shaug Hennessy.
O'Shaug Hennessy, yeah.
This is great.
Is it? Yeah. I can't believe how much I'm so into it. And
I love the way it goes into the accent so and just stays in it.
That North Carolina accent is my favourite by far out of all of them, and it makes sense that it was settled by Scottish, Irish, stuff like that.
I love the New York accent, me.
It's the same with the music. I don't mind a banjo, to be fair, and a fiddle.
You're going hunting.
Get on with it. Here's Nicole again to talk a little bit about African American speech in Southern Appalachia.
Hi again. So African Americans in Appalachia are understudied, mostly because stereotypes of Appalachia are very, very white. African Americans in Appalachia may be more likely to be rhotic, so in words like floor,
Way up there on the fourth floor,
you'll get the R, whereas in other places you might get floor. African Americans in Appalachia also tend to follow the more general Southern pattern with respect to I monophthongization, ah in wide turning to ah, so you get wad. And now the map tour continues with Eric.
Thank you, Nicole. We're picking up again in North Carolina. Over in the Outer Banks, there's an even more historically isolated community because of a shift in shipping patterns in the mid-19th century. And probably also because of sympathizing with the Northern cause in the Civil War. Ocracoke Island was relatively isolated from the mainland for a long time. It developed maybe one of the most distinctive and different dialects in North America. Obliging islanders will sometimes say to tourists, well, it's high tide on the same side. Last night the water far, night the moon shine, no fish. Ocracoke Islanders are sometimes called high tiders because of that particularly distinctive I sound. And their accent is sometimes taken to be British or Australian, even by Brits. And truth be told, there are some similarities with some regional English accents, including that high tide vowel sound, which is similar to both southwestern English accents like Devon or Gloucestershire, and East Anglian accents like Norfolk and Suffolk, those easternmost counties of England. Curiously, another distinctive thing about the old Ocracoke accent.
He does the best accent for the because you got it right with Gloucester. I was Bristol, but it's next door.
Yeah,
but it's the Bristol accent. When he was saying that before, I thought he sounds very Bristolian. This
he did it at the beginning as well when he said the traditional London accent was actually like the southwest accent.
Yeah,
and I was like, I've just been in Cornwall, I've driven through Bristol, Devon, all that, and that accent.
It's a tough accent.
Oh yeah,
it's a tough accent.
But every pirate in every movie has got a Bristol accent or a Devon accent.
I don't know. There's a thing between the accents in England of which is the worst. I think it's either Gloucester, or
Dudley. I think the Geordie accent has got to be pretty high up on that list. To be fair,
I don't know. It's supposed to be one of the friendliest accents. That's why they put call centres in Newcastle and places like that, because the accents.
It's not unfriendly. It's just that gregarious. It's that ridiculous, isn't it? When it's a thick accent.
It is, especially if you get a proper Geordie.
Yeah.
And it's also got a real sort of bounce to it, which is something that both those southwestern and those East Anglian accents also have in common. North Carolina is actually one of the most linguistically diverse states in the country. I want to bring in Kalina Newmark now to talk about Native American English.
Hello, my name is Kalina Newmark, and I am Talita Dene First Nations from the Northwest Territories, Canada. I come from a strong line of Dene and Métis leaders who are passionate about our language and cultural teachings. The Lumbee tribe is the largest state-recognized Native American tribe in North Carolina. Lumbee speakers combine and pronounce English words that distinguish them from African American and Southern speakers. Since encountering white settlers in the mid-1800s, the Lumbee have carved out a dialect of English that is uniquely theirs. One interesting feature is that Lumbee English speakers share vowel sounds present in the Outer Banks accent, where tide is pronounced toid. You can hear that in this native speaker clip.
Well, when he got halfway, that little ditch on this side, ditch on this side, ditch on this side.
Thank you, Kalina.
Gloucester.
That's
proper Gloucester,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
a Gloucester farmer that's got minimal teeth. That you just stood there going, fuck you on about. Did you watch Clarkson on the farm?
Yeah.
That guy.
The guy building the wall.
Yeah, God knows where he's from. I don't even think he knows where he's from. Is it in... Where is his farm?
Cotswolds.
It's in the Cotswolds. He's not from the Cotswolds.
He's definitely like
he's just
Gloucester.
wandered in from Gloucester one day.
Well, that Ocracoke Island high tider accent is an accent that's disappearing fast. The younger Ocracockers tend to speak much more mainstream American English. There's a popular idea that we're losing regional accents, that people are sounding more and more similar. That's true of some people in some places, especially some of these isolated communities. But it's not true across the board. There are actually plenty of accent differences that are getting more and more distinct over time. But of course, it's a complex picture. There are parts of the South that don't have all that much Southern about them, accent-wise. Raleigh, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas are two good examples. A lot of people from those two cities may be pretty hard to identify by their accents. Which brings us to what is sometimes called General American. What's General American? The first thing is, it's not one accent. It's basically a terrible term for a wide variety of accents that essentially don't have a lot of obvious regionally distinctive features in them. We're going to talk to Sun Michaud now. Sun is a native speaker of Gullah, a fascinating and really important Creole language spoken in the Low Countries in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida.
Gullah is a language spoken in a region of the United States called the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, which extends officially from Wilmington, North Carolina, down to Jacksonville,
Never
Florida.
heard of it.
Gullah is an Atlantic Creole, most similar with Bohemian Creole English and Bajan Creole. In fact, when I visited the Bahamas,
I always thought Creole was more French than anything.
I always thought it was like, it's like is it Haiti and all around there?
The guy from The Green Mile with the mouse, Mr. Bojangles. I thought that was Creole. That kind of half French, half English, but
Yeah,
mixed.
could be.
a bunch of the local them thought that I'd been a local too. There are a variety of factors that inform the language. For instance, the secluded plantations on the Sea Island, a mixture of African languages, as well as the accents of lower class English and Irish indentured servants and slavers. European slavers were so ill-suited for the Sea Island's environment that they would often afford long periods of solitary time to our ancestors with little to no oversight. Slavers would mismatch the languages in order to confound them and hinder their ability to organize rebellions. Now, the scheme of this tactic was designed for our Gullah Geechee ancestors to be forced to speak English so that their overseers could be privy to their communications. But what slavers didn't predict is that this first-generation English-based African pidgin would develop into a Creole, a fully mature rule-governed language of its own, much of which remains with us today due to generations of forced segregation and eventual separation by choice before the building of bridges that increased easy access to and fro. I'm going to walk you through a few distinct features of the Gullah Geechee accent. For example, the kit-foot vowels are reversed for the words fish and foot to sound like fush and fit. The lot trap vowels are reversed for God and pat to sound like gad and pot. The softening of the T's, where butter and bent would sound like butter and bean. Gullah speakers also drop consonants for vowels where the two words meet. For instance, in the sentences that gal there and that boy there, the word for there, there, adds or subtracts the D depending on if there's a consonant or a vowel preceding it. The importance of accent to the Gullah Geechee language simply cannot be overstated. It is the clearest bond between ourselves and other displaced Africans throughout colonized spaces in the Black diaspora. How we sound is as important as what we say, because our accent is a statement in itself. This has been your Gullah teacher, Sun Michaud. Stay safe, and as always, we out ya.
It sounds Jamaican a little bit, doesn't he?
It's so hard to put my finger on what it is.
When he said that boy there and that girl there,
yeah,
It was very Jamaican sort of sounding.
It's such. I mean, this is mind-boggling. To be fair, there's points of it where I'm really like, I get exactly what you're talking about, and then they've lost me with a couple of the accents where I'm trying to put my finger on it, but I just don't know.
I've never heard of that one. I've heard of Creole, but
I've heard of Creole, but again, I thought it was more of a French thing. But maybe Creole, I associate that with because of, I don't know, places like New Orleans where it's a French settlement, but people speak Creole. Maybe let me know if I'm wrong about that. Probably.
Peace.
Thank you so much, son. So, if you're keeping count, that's 6 Southern accents already, even though we're not being remotely comprehensive here, and we've only been through a few states. Lots more to come. As we get into the Piney Woods Belt, southern Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, and northern Florida, we get into one of the parts of the South that's always been rhotic. A lot of the South was historically non-rhotic. That's where you get this sort of Blanche Dubois, Scarlett O'Hara kind of classical Southern accent. You can hear that in this clip here.
I've always depended on the kindness of strangers.
You hear how there's no R in strangers?
Strange.
That's a non-rhotic accent. But that's changed, and changed fast over the last few decades, so that most younger white Southerners are now rhotic. And most
all I hear is Matthew McConaughey.
A little bit, yeah.
Piney Woods Belt, though, they always have been. Now, Nicole talked about the fact that some African-American speakers in the Southern Appalachians smooth out the I diphthong, the price vowel in some words, and we get a long I sound. But in other words, it stays a diphthong, I. And this is a pattern we find in a lot of the South. In most of the Piney Woods Belt, though, there's always been what we can describe as full price smoothing, where some Southerners smooth the diphthong in words like fly, rise, and ride, but use a diphthong in rice and right. Here in the Piney Woods Belt, we're going to smooth them all. Fly, rise, ride, and rice, right, life, night, and so on. There's an interesting posture thing here, too.
It's such a cool sounding accent, isn't it?
Not that. It's the way he describes it there. And the way he's doing this, the way he's doing the AI and the A and stuff like that, makes it a lot easier to do the accent.
Yeah, well, if I practiced using the techniques and stuff, it makes I'm understanding it, so I could start to potentially try and do an accent. Definitely.
Where you got so far?
I'm lost.
Price. Price smoothing.
Can of Coke? I'm joking.
Which is that you start to get tongue tips that are very edge focused. And what I mean by that is that instead of using this part of the tongue, the blade, for things like T and D sounds, so that there's a lot of surface contact, tuh, duh.
I'd have preferred it there if you'd have said, if you're using this bit of the tongue for the T and A.
Fair play, give you that.
We just use the narrow edge of the tongue, so it's a more focused contact area, tuh, duh. 10 tired turtles talk about dentists. We're going to end part 1 right here, but we're going to continue this all the way across the continent. We're going to go to Chicago and Southern California, and yes, absolutely, we'll get out in a boat up in Canada. See you next time for part 2.
Absolutely love that. It was so good.
It was long, but I tell you what, I know it's only part 1, but we're definitely going through all them.
I really hope there's a UK one. Because the way that guy breaks it down and talks about it, if he can do Geordie, Scouse, and he obviously can do. All he did was kind of below the Midlands accents though when he was doing the UK. But it's so interesting.
It was. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That's one of the best videos I've seen.
It's one of the best. I'm probably with you on that because we've not normally done videos this long. It gets more into the interesting, almost documentary style, doesn't it?
I was well into that. Loved it.
That southern one though, where it was the Matthew McConaughey, where it's all that
smooth and
ras. For me, that's the epitome of cool. Yeah. It really is. I love that accent. I really do.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join us. We will do all the other ones as well. So don't tell us in the comments. You should do part 2, part 3. We know.
Do more beatboxing. Do some Harry Mack. Do some Harry Mack.
Harry Mack. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Hit the bell, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Cheers, guys.